Little Golden Book Junk Journal Pockets. That's what we're making today, and I've got 5 ideas for you, plus a bonus fabric pocket idea. And stick around till the end because I have a sneak peek at the pocket filler video that's coming next. Plus, I have a little favor to ask of you. Here we go, y'all. Hey y'all, welcome to Pink Paper Peppermints. I'm Melissa and we are making pockets today. And you need a couple of things for this first pocket, some spray ink and a circle punch and some scissors. And of course a junk mail envelope because we are doing junk mail envelope pockets. And so what I'm doing here is just checking the size and making sure it fits, cutting the top so it fits to my B6 size junk journal. And I'm going to take a little piece of paper and cover up my window. I've cut that to size beforehand. And make sure and clear your area so that you don't get your spray ink on anything. I've laid a piece of parchment paper down. We're going to spray our envelope and we're going to come back to this in just a minute. So our second idea is shaker pockets. And I am using some vintage typewriter paper here. And I am using a B6 template that I made, and I'll put the link to that video up in the top right hand corner and also in the description. And I'm cutting my paper to size, and I'm just making sure that it fits, and I'm just going to bend the paper down so that it's the size of the pocket, the height of the pocket that I want. I'm going to cut that, and I'm going to use that as a pattern for the other piece, and you'll see what we're going to do with that in a minute. Basically what we want is 4 pieces of paper for 2 pockets on both sides of the page. So I'm cutting that in half, and I'm going to take that over to the sewing machine because I'm going to sew all 3 sides of this pocket. Now before I sewed it, I decided I wanted to type a scripture quote, and so I did that, and I've sewn the 3 sides, and now I'm going to fill it up with some chunky glitter. This is Recollections chunky glitter from Michaels. And what I'm going to be putting in these pockets are some journal cards from my Oh Happy Day collection. It's from Vintage Greeting Cards, and they have scriptures on them, and that's what I'm using there. And so I decided that glitter wasn't chunky enough, and I needed a little bit chunkier glitter, and so I added that in. And now what I want to do is just sew up the top of these pockets so that my glitter doesn't escape when we turn the pages of our journal. And so I'm going to do that, take that over to the sewing machine, and you can see here that I've got it all filled up now, and I actually added some star glitter into the pockets as well, and I thought that looked pretty. So my next step is just to now attach these shaker pockets to my map page backgrounds. And you can see I also added a little bit of lace there at the top just to give it some texture and some depth. And so I'm just going to sew on 3 sides to my map pages to create my pockets. And now I have my little shaker pockets. And you could use transparencies or packaging for these pockets, and you can also use these pockets for different things too. So idea number 3, we are doing a felt folded pocket. Now I have some measurements here that I came up with based on a B6, which is a 5x7 page. But really, you don't need measurements. Just take your piece of felt and lay it on the page. You may be using a standard size journal, or you may be using a different size journal. And you can lay it on the page, and you'll see here, you're basically just cutting a wedge shape. Now, I will put the measurements in the description below, but really you can just eyeball this and it comes out just as cute. And so I'm cutting it to the shape of my pattern, and I'm just going to do sort of an accordion fold with it to create the pockets. And you'll see here how I fold it one way, fold it back on itself, and now I'm creating these pockets this way. But one of the things that I want to do is add some trim to the edges. And if you want to add trim or you want to add decoration of any kind, you want to do that before you sew up the sides of the pocket. So I'm going to take this to the sewing machine, and before I do that, I'm going to decide what trim that I want to use, my silk flower and some pom-pom trim. And I'm going to take that, I'm going to sew those attachments first, and then I'm going to sew up the 3 sides of my pocket. So you can see here, I've got my pocket now, and I'm going to choose which page that I want to sew it to, and I'm going to sew the 3 sides again. And I believe I used a zigzag stitch when I sewed it that second time. And the page that I use is actually a vintage greeting card. And so I just sewed it to the back, and now you can see I've got 3 little slide-in pockets now that are made from felt. And now we're going to go back to our junk mail envelope. It's all dry. We're going to save that little piece of paper for something later. And now we're going to cut a thumb notch in the top of our envelope with our circle punch. And you can see I didn't decorate the back of my envelope because I'm planning to just glue it directly into my book. But if you wanted to make this a tip-in where you use some washi tape down the side so that you could flip it over like a page, then you might want to decorate the back of your envelope as well. So now we're going to do a layered pocket page. And I'm using my Printable Traveler's Notebook insert, which is from my Prisoner of Hope collection. Of course, you could use any of the Traveler's Notebook inserts from any of my collections for this. And I'm printed 3 pages front and back, so you need double-sided for this. And I'm going to just trim up the pages. And now we're going to layer the pages. And for a B6, we're going to layer them about 1.5 inches apart. For a standard, you'd do about 2 inches apart. And you can see I'm measuring this here. I'll put these measurements in the description below as well. And we're going to paper clip just to make sure our paper doesn't move around as we're folding. And for the very bottom, we're going to paper clip at 7 inches because this is how tall I want my pocket page to be. And then I'm going to bring this stack of paper towards me, and then I'm going to flip it over and fold it at that bottom paper clip. This is going to create our 7-inch pocket page. And I'm just going to measure and make sure it's 7 inches, make sure it's straight, and then I'm going to crease from the center out to the edges and remove my paper clips. And you can see how it looks before we fold it. We've got our layers there, and now we're going to fold it, match up those corners, and then press from the center of your fold outwards. And you've got your pockets here. We've got 2 pockets on each page on the outside and 1 on the inside. And you can sew those up, which is what I like to do, or you can use glue or you can use washi tape. I just like sewing because it's not messy and, and it holds. You could also sew down the center of the fold if you were concerned about things slipping in and out of the pockets. I don't usually do that just because I'm just not worried about that. So we're going to place that into our book, and now we are ready for our next pocket page idea. So for our next project, we're going to be using my Printable Traveler's Notebook insert from my Promises Fulfilled collection. It's an art journal, and I designed it using pages from my art journal. And we're doing a tri-fold pocket page, and we're going to be overlapping these pages to create our pocket. And first we want to trim off the edges. This is a standard. Last time we used a B6. We're using a standard size this time, but you could use a B6 for sure. And we're just going to decide which of these we don't mind not showing because we're going to cover one up. And I've chosen the orange and yellow. And you can see here what I'm going to do is sew these 2 pages together on those 3 sides, creating the pocket. And before I do that, I'm going to cut a little thumb notch. And we've gone to the sewing machine, and now we've sewn those 3 sides up to create our pocket. And so now what we want to do is fold the other pages in to create the tri-fold. So you can see I've folded those in, and now I've got my tri-fold pocket, and I can just slip it into my journal. And depending on which way you want it to open, you can slip it in one way and have it open to the right, or you can slip it in the other way and have it open to the left. And I've got some really neat tags to show you. In our next video, we're going to do pocket fillers, and I'm going to show you a fun tag trick. So now I've got a bonus idea for you. This is going to be a pocket page, and I had so much fun with this. I'm using a mix of vintage material and new material and some trims. And for the base, I'm using an old bedspread that was a garage sale find. I'm using my B6 page template and putting it right in the center because I like the texture of that part better. I'm going to cut that out for my page. And for my pockets, I'm using this vintage hot pink scarf that I found at an estate sale, and also some new fabric that I picked up at the quilt show. It's got kind of a vintagey look to it, and that turquoise and pink I just love together so much. So I'm going to trim my pockets to size, and I'm going to trim the trim to fit as well. And then I'm also decided that I would make a little fabric tab out of the orange floral fabric that I have there. So I just made a little tab that I'm going to sew to the side of the page. And so I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine and get it all sewn up, and you can see I've done that here. And I sewed the 3 sides of each pocket. First I sewed the trim on, then the 3 sides, and then I also sewed right down the center, so creating 2 mini pockets of each pocket. And you can see that on the tab, the fabric tab, I also sewed some sequins to give it a little sparkle and a little dimension. And I have so many good pocket filler ideas for you to show you. That's what we're going to be doing next week is pocket fillers, and I cannot wait to show them to you. You might want to subscribe if you're not already so that you don't miss that video. And hey, can I ask you a favor? Can you share this video with somebody that you think might enjoy it? I would appreciate that so much. Here's a little sneak peek at next week's pocket fillers, and I will see you then here on Pink Paper Peppermints.